Apparently, the CEO of WWE, the wrestling franchise,
Yeah.
the giant,
Yes.
is quitting. We're gonna check that out. Hi YouTube, yeah, hi YouTube. Let's check this out.
Sacramento Sports Talk. Sports 1140 KHTK.
Oh my god.
All right, so if you listen to the show, you know that I'm a hardcore wrestling fan. Verlad is a hardcore wrestling fan. We're trying to get JJ back into it. He's like an old school wrestling fan, but he's aware of what's going on. And of course, this week, lots of news about Vince McMahon, the CEO of the WWE. Of course, he is also the creative mind behind World Wrestling Entertainment, and he is in some
Guys, you got no idea how important Vince is for the wrestling as a whole. Like, I don't know what the allegations are, but Vince is like a huge reason that the WWE is so successful, okay? Like, he's one of the biggest. He had like, what, a 5-year run as a character on the WWE. Like, he was again 70 years old and he was still getting thrown on stage and like doing all this wrestling stuff and having people beat him. I get it's fake, but still, when you're 70 years old and people throw you around and pretend to be hitting you, it still hurts a lot, okay? Like, he was willing to do that. I always thought he was like very cool. He was a good CEO and a good wrestler, even though he wasn't a wrestler. And I don't know what he did, but let's check that out.
hot water, possible misconduct toward employees. And really, there's nobody better to get on the phone than the guy we have on the phone right now. His name is Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer newsletter. If you're a wrestling fan, you know Dave has been writing about wrestling and mixed martial arts for a long time. Dave, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I want to ask you about this report that surfaced on Twitter and whether or not you can confirm this. Before we get into the Vince stepping down stuff, there is a report that Kevin Dunn, who is the producer of WWE TV, and John Laurinaitis of Talent Relations, who is also kind of wrapped up in these cases with Vince, there's a report out there saying that both of those men were asked to leave the building before SmackDown tonight and that they were walked out in front of the roster.
There's no
Can you
way.
confirm that news?
I have not heard that, and it would actually contradict something that I heard earlier today.
There's no way they kicked out the CEO that way, okay? Like, there's no hecking way. Like, Vince, as far as I know, the WWE is not a publicly traded company. Like, he has the final say on anything, even if he quits. I don't think he got kicked out.
But
If he's
We're on Frost
stepping
morning,
down,
correct?
if he's stepping down, yes. If he's kept stepping down, it's because he wants to step down. Like, because he feels the pressure to do so, not because he is forced to.
I will check on that. I have not heard that.
Would it surprise you that if Kevin Dunn and Laurinaitis showed the exit today?
Kevin Dunn would shock me, or would surprise me. John Laurinaitis wouldn't surprise me at all. No.
All right, let's get to the Vince McMahon side of this, Dave. Were you surprised, speaking of surprised, were you surprised that McMahon decided to step down, at least temporarily, during this investigation as CEO of the company?
Not shocked. I mean, I was shocked it happened this soon. When the story surfaced, which was a Wall Street Journal story on Wednesday, I mean, I thought like this one's going to be a tough one. It could get him, because there's the key one is doubling the salary of the woman that he was allegedly having an affair with, and that was tough, and the hush payments and everything, and all coming out like that. So I knew he was going to be under a lot of scrutiny, and
Okay, I gotta, believe it or not, I need context to understand this. Let's see, give me a minute. Is WWE publicly traded? Okay, it is a publicly traded company. Okay, then I do have a huge issue with that. If that was his company and he did that, I'm not gonna like it, obviously. I'm not gonna think it's okay, but like that's a whole different issue than if he was using money from a publicly traded company. When you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, even if you have the majority stake at it, which I'm sure he has, and you irresponsibly handle money with that, maybe you can get away with it legally. It is wrong. It is not your money. You cannot use it to bribe people. I think that's really messed up, and if that's the case, he should have definitely been taken down of the company.
How it ends up, I think, depends on. They have an independent investigation going on, and I think it depends on the results of the investigation, whether he'll sink or swim. I mean, look, I live in Silicon Valley, and I've seen executives far more powerful than Vince McMahon get taken down in sex cases, so nothing would shock me. And if you followed wrestling, I mean, like, the stories of Vince McMahon, I mean, they're not – this isn't – the story itself isn't a big shock, put it that way.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Dave Meltzer is with us here from Wrestling Observer newsletter. Of course, Dave, they said the WWE announced that McMahon voluntarily stepped down and made this decision. Do you think it was voluntary, or do you think somebody might have, said, Vince, it might be in your best interest to sit out for a little bit here?
Vince has all the control and and stock control and everything like that. I think that, I'm sure somebody, whether it was his lawyer or, a confidant or something, said, Vince, it's probably better for the company to do this. But ultimately, it's going to be Vince's call. So, and he's still the head of creative, which is a key thing. He didn't really step down,
right,
as much as there's it's like a figurehead change, if you know what I mean. I mean, if he was gone from the company, that would be stepping down. I mean, he's really, especially with Stephanie being put in that position, he's still probably running things. And
when people say that Bobby Kotick is gone, and people are like, "Oh, thank God, Bobby Kotick is gonna be gone from Blizzard." No. Think again.
It's just, kind of like a cosmetic change.
Yeah, I said that today before the show, Dave, that this kind of reminds me of Daniel Snyder in the NFL. Daniel Snyder supposedly is not running the day-to-day operation for Washington, but they put his wife in his place, and I think it's rather obvious that he knows what's going on and he's involved. Let me ask you about...
Well, there's actually a perfect story of this. In the 90s, when Vince was in trouble, Linda McMahon suddenly became president of the company. But nothing really changed. It was still the same company. And then, Linda McMahon left as president and Vince was back as president.
Fantastic point. Let's talk about Vince
He's
tonight.
taking a vacation, guys.
It was announced that he's going to be on SmackDown, not as the CEO and the real Vince McMahon, so to speak, but he's going to be in character. Do we have any idea what to expect from Vince tonight on SmackDown?
For people that are not familiar with wrestling, the CEO, 70-year-old CEO of this company, Vince McMahon, I think he's the age of Trump, more or less, okay? He's old. He has a wrestling character in the show. He plays an evil CEO, funnily, right? Like, he plays like a corporate overlord that's evil. Yeah, reality often imitates fiction.
I don't know, but it sounds like a really bad idea. but the whole thing, obviously, it's an attempt to draw television ratings. The SmackDown ratings have been down the last several weeks, which is not so much SmackDown is the fact that, they've gone against the NBA and NHL playoffs.
Right.
And I think he's looking at using this to jumpstart the ratings. It's fascinating. I mean, Vince has done this before. It is his MO. But I was surprised. Wouldn't have been surprised for him to go on and make some kind of a speech and step away. The idea that he's going to be in character and play Mr. McMahon while this is going on is. I guess we have to wait and see. What he does. It might be funny. It might be sad. I don't know.
Dave Meltzer is with us here on the Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. From
76 years old, he exercises a lot, takes growth hormones, but mentally he's super tough even without this. Dude, I've seen pictures of him, okay? He's jacked, okay? Like, he looks better at 76 than I look, okay? Like, he's in a magnitudes better shape than I am, okay? Like, I'm sure he has surgery or whatever, like, he takes care of himself, obviously, but he has a great physique for 76-year-old, like, man. And yeah, he probably chooses, but yeah.
From the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave is just on CNN, so we feel very, very lucky to get Dave today. The idea that Stephanie is the one to replace him on an interim basis, Dave, this is interesting. She just recently took a leave of absence from the WWE. Was this a surprise or shocking to you in any kind of way that Stephanie was the one that was the person who replaced him?
Yes, that was a complete shock to me because she just left the company a month ago, and they buried her on the way out.
Yep.
If she just left quietly and came back in this role, I wouldn't have been surprised. But they literally just buried her like 2 weeks ago, and here she is, basically saying she wasn't good enough at her job, and now she's running, she's in theory running the whole company and chairwoman of the board. So yeah, if it was 3 months ago, I wouldn't have been surprised. But when I woke up this morning to find that out, and it was Stephanie, I was like, oh, I've got to process this one.
So this is a common tactic, especially in politics, but also in companies, because he has a modus operandi apparently of when the heat gets into him, he leaves for a few years and then comes back and he sets a puppet in the company. You don't want to set somebody that is too competent or too charming or too powerful to take your place for a few years, because it's going to make it harder for you to come back. Like, what if that guy doesn't want to leave the church? What if that guy doesn't wants to take your place for good? If he is too popular, too good, if the person that replaces you is too good at their job, too popular, whatever, too powerful, you are kind of screwed. So if this is the case, he's probably getting somebody that is not going to be too popular on the board, that the board is not going to like. So that way, whenever the heat goes down and he wants to come back, he can be like, easily throw her out, basically. I think that's what he's trying to do, if that's the case.
Some people, you touched on this a little bit a couple of minutes ago, Dave, but some people might not quite understand how this works. Could you explain why Vince just couldn't be voted out as the figurehead by, the board of directors of the WWE?
Yeah, Vince, even though he owns 38% of the stock, so in theory, you could vote him out that way. He owns 80% of the voting stock. So,
there you go.
From a voting standpoint, he cannot be voted out. That's the way when they went public, they used the way that they did the stock, basically made him, impenetrable to a hostile takeover. So if he were to leave, in theory, it is going to be of his own choice. I mean, as far as that goes, obviously there's a morals clause, and they could get him on that, perhaps, especially with these charges. So, as far as his employment agreement and everything like that, as everyone would have, he's got a morals clause in there.
If he was forced out, and we're saying forced out, like it's time that you're going to go, whether it's the sponsors, whether it's, NBC or Fox, and they say, Vince, you got to leave. Would it be Nick Khan to take his place on the business side?
Yes. I would think that would be Nick Khan on the business side. The question is who would on the wrestling side, and that I don't know as well. But Nick Khan, yeah.
All right, now let me ask you about this possible sale. Dave Meltzer is with us here. Just got two more for you, Dave. I'll squeeze in. If WWE was sold to, let's say, NBC, could that actually change how wrestlers are contracted? Would they be officially employees? We know that they haven't had a union, and they always talk about.
That would be so funny, a wrestling union. Can you believe that? Oh! No, man. Like, paid actors are not employees either, I think, right? Like, they are basically that. They are paid actors. Are actors of a movie, of a contract movie, employees officially? I don't think they are. I don't know the legal, how it is in the US. I don't think they are employees either. I don't know.
Their rights, could that fundamentally change the wrestling business?
It could. I wouldn't expect that it would because, UFC was recently sold. Well, not recently. It was 2016. And it didn't fundamentally change there. Everything was kind of the same.
Screen Actors Guild. Yeah, they should probably just be... They are probably there, right? Like, they are professional actors. That they have a union, sorta. Like, that's what I thought, right?
Could the wrestlers at that moment really push to get involved with the Screen Actors Guild? Because, in theory, that's really what they are, as television performers.
Right.
I think that if the wrestlers banded together at that point of the sale, before like a big show and everything like that, I think they could. There's a good chance I think that they could get something.
No shot.
Especially with Vince out and more of a like a company.
There's no shot.
Like an NBC that's more used to dealing with the Screen Actors Guild. I think that might be a good thing for the wrestlers to make a move right about that time.
Last one for you, Dave. And again, thank you for the time. Got about 30 seconds here. What would happen creatively? What's your best guess? Bruce Pritchard obviously is there. Would Paul Heyman get involved? Would HBK possibly get promoted from NXT 2.0? How would that kind of shake out?
Man, that's the loaded question, and I don't know the answer. In theory, Bruce Pritchard would be the number 2 guy, but I don't know that he's the guy to carry it. Paul Heyman is very brilliant, but he's also very controversial, and I don't know that they would go back to him. Sean, that's a possibility. It is definitely a possibility. But yeah, you don't know. I think, legitimately any of those 3. I don't know. Sean's never really done it for the main roster. He's doing it for NXT. So I would say Bruce would be the favorite because that's where things were in play. But I think that there would be other people like Jeff Jarrett who's on the team, maybe someone from the outside. So yeah, but that is the big question. Yeah.
Dave, thank you for your time. I know you're very busy right now, and let's keep up on this story. I'd love to have you.
Okay, that's pretty much it then. Yeah, guys, like, this is pretty fresh. I don't want to say surprised. This is a CEO of a publicly traded company in the US. This is just Tuesday for America right nowadays. A sexual scandal. Damn, again, innocence and then proving otherwise. We don't know if this is true, but if this is true, like this kind of sucks. Like, I really liked Vince. I always thought he was a great CEO. Like, if you know the story, he inherited, like, WWE was basically dying at the time, and he turned it into a very profitable, very iconic business, and like took out the competition in the 90s when there was like a wrestling wars, so to speak. There was competitors to the WWE. I forgot the name, but there was a few associations competing to it, and he smoked them all, and he like created great characters, including himself, who played a character, as we said before. And I don't know, either way, even if the allegations are true, and you know, he should be stepped down if those are true, it still sucks. Okay, WCW, that was the competition. Yeah, I think Hulk Hogan was on that. I don't know, I am too young to understand that party. Okay, I wasn't born yet. Okay, I am very young. But yeah, there you got it. Really sad, man. Companies, modern companies, it's getting rough, you know. People that you think all your childhood that they are cool, it turns out they are people like that, you know. How old are you? I am 23. Either way, guys, you know, subscribe, hit the notification bell for we have a lot more coming. Thank you.